say good morning once again to those of you listening to Classic Radio, those of you viewing via GBN TV. Welcome to the Mid-Morning Buzz here on Classic Radio, GBN TV once again. Let me say good morning to my guest this morning. Of course, it's all about Child Month. Yeah. And with me this morning, we have Mrs. Petrina Sukaram Charles. I'm bad with names, so hope I'm getting all together. Welcome. And we also have with us, of course, Ms. Esther Williams. So I want to say welcome to both of you. Child Month 2024. I'm sort of a bit lapsed on this for this year for some reason or the other. I think I've been so taken up with other things that's been happening. What's the focal theme for this year and for Child's Month? If anyone of you can answer that for me.
Okay, good morning. Good morning to everyone. Mm-hmm. Thanks for having us. So this year we're celebrating with the theme, I am your child, I am your priority.
All right. Let me get that on for you. I think I might have added that. All right. I am your child. I am your priority. That's the basic theme that they're using for this year. All right. Now, our focus of conversation this morning will basically be on how parents can support their children with literacy development, and with a lot of emphasis based on reading. Folks will always say it's one of those aspects of learning that you see a lot of children, of course, have a bit of a deficiency in. And being a parents could, of course, help their children a whole lot if they focus on a bit. Let's talk about that a wee bit in terms of how parents could actually help their children in terms of their literacy development.
So before we get to how parents can help their children, we would like to first start with what really literacy means.
I agree. Yes.
Because oftentimes when we look at literacy, we look merely at reading. Yeah. But literacy entails so much more than reading.
All right.
So it's basically one's ability to speak. So it starts with speaking. Yes. Ability to speak, to read, to write, to listen. So that person will be able to communicate effectively and also able to make greater sense of the world, things that are happening around us.
I have never thought of it in that way before. It's because you mention it now, it says a lot. If you can't speak, you wouldn't be able to read, right?
Exactly.
That's the whole point. If you the basic sense of knowing things will also make it difficult for you to read. So it's interesting to know that.
Because when we read, we don't only call the words on the page, we have to make sense.
And you show some emotions into it also when you read, I would say so.
Right. Also. So you're forming meaning, you're getting meaning from what you're reading.
All right. Hey, you want to expand on that a little bit?
Okay, so sometimes, like you said, we take this literacy thing for granted and we don't look at it from the point where a child is able to speak.
Yeah.
And you just think that it's reading, merely reading. But being able to speak, having these early conversations with your baby. Some mothers, they would start speaking to the baby from the womb.
Yeah.
So literacy really starts from the womb. So we can say it begins in the womb and ends when we get to the tomb.
Sometimes you hear those weird conversations that mothers would have with their babies.
So that's where it really begins.
And you wonder why are they talking that way, but it also plays an important part in their development as they go forward. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's get into, now that we have summarized a wee bit the literacy part of it. Now the development part of it, how does that follow through?
So we focus a lot on early literacy.
Yes.
And it starts from the time the child, as she said, from womb. Mm-hmm. And in school, we focus from preschool.
Yes.
Because that's when the children really come to us at preschool.
Yeah.
So we would focus a lot on oral development, getting the children able to express themselves freely. Yeah. So that's why you would find in preschool the students are engaged in a lot of hands-on activities and a lot of interaction, because they're getting to self-express. They're learning new vocabulary, new words. They're able to make complete sentences and so on through the guidance, of course, by the teacher.
Okay.
So at home, we're expecting that parents would also try to have activities, engage their children in simple activities that would mirror those that are being done at school. So it's like the school alone cannot do it, but we need the parents, we need home to be partners with the teachers so that the students could really maximize their learning and could achieve greater outcomes in school.
All right. Let me hear from you, Michelle.
Okay, so Mrs. Sukramcha spoke about the preschool, but we know that daycares are becoming more and more popular in Grenada, and we have children from 0 to 2 years going to our daycare. So even as early as daycare, the children are given the opportunity to develop their speaking skills, their vocabularies, their speaking vocabularies, being able to express themselves. You know, sometimes maybe they might use little hollow phrase, like they might say titi, you know, they use the little one-word expression. So even as early as the daycare, before they head to us at preschool, it's being developed.
How can parents identify that their sons or daughters may be having an issue early at an early stage?
Well, it depends. When you say issue, what exactly?
Well, that's an issue in terms of, you know, as you meant, as we started on the entry, then you said there are different signs that shows literacy. So you may notice your son or daughter may have a speech impediment for some reason, which could affect their reading ability to a point. How could parents identify these early and get the assistance that is maybe needed to help their sons or daughters?
Well, parents, through interaction, of course, you will be able to pick up certain things. But that doesn't mean if the child has some speech delay or maybe not pronouncing words properly, it may not necessarily mean that the child has an issue.
Yeah.
It might just be that the child needs to communicate more, need to interact more. But if they are already attending school, we have persons from the special education unit that can be contacted. They can come observe the child in the learning environment, note the observation, and be able to guide the parent as to what would be the next step.
You want to add anything to it?
Okay, another thing is when you take your child to the clinic, right? There are certain milestones that you see written on their passport that they should have acquired by a certain age. And you might be thinking, okay, my child is 3 months or my child is a year and I'm not seeing that. It might not be that your child has a problem, but as my colleague said, it might be just a delay.
Okay.
But you're able to gauge because you're given this milestone on the child's passport. Like, is the child able to say something like da, you know? And of course, you know, if the child cannot hear, the child will not be able to produce the language. So if you realize the child is maybe a year going and the child is not saying certain things as they have laid out in the milestones, it would be concerning for you as a parent. So maybe you might want to get a hearing check or raise it with your pediatrician to see really what is happening to the child. But some children, basically, they have delay in speech, and parents tend to think that the child had some impairment or when it could be just a delay.
I just want to add to that parents need to be mindful when they're looking at the achievement of the child. We tend, as parents, to compare our child or children with other children.
Yeah, you should be able to be doing that too.
Yes, and everybody has their own developmental rate, their pace, and that child will be able to develop at his or her own time. Yeah? So let's go back to early literacy and what parents can do. So, for example, a child might be saying one word. So the child might want the ball, but all the child may say is ball. Yes. So what you as a parent can do is to model the expected behavior. So as a parent, if you just keep saying ball, that's what the child would repeat.
Yes.
But you may want to add, would you like to have the ball? Can I have the ball, please? So you're giving the child options.
More than one word.
Right.
More than one word.
And more than one way in which they can ask for the ball if that's what they want.
So you're extending the child's vocabulary. You're helping them to extend their sentences as they speak.
Yep.
Now, what is the importance of reading for youngsters, especially from after the daycare stage, as they go now to the preschool stage? The importance of reading at those stages. How important is that?
Very important. But we can't just jump into reading.
I understand.
So it's a process.
It's a process. That I understand.
So at the preschool, that's where we're starting to lay the foundation now and getting the child prepared, ready for reading. So a lot of pre-reading or reading readiness skills are being taught at the preschool.
All right.
And not necessarily reading what the parent may deem as reading.
I mean, I understand that from that point. I mean, they're young.
Yes.
They may not be able to identify, of course, words, except they are youngsters who we have developed at an early age.
Yes, of course you have the exceptionals.
I have a son who at 3 could have identified words already. You understand?
Yes.
So he was able to read at 3 as he was a bit fluent in reading already. Because he, for some reason, I don't know where he got it from.
Yes.
But he could have looked at 1, 2, 3 and actually tell you that there's 1, 2, 3 and read it for you. Not all children be able to do that at that age. You understand? So being able to, so that's where the teachers come into play, that they would speak to those youngsters more, and that's where they identify the words that's been said.
And the teachers would be able to understand the process better, and they will be able to guide. But as parents, if we're not aware, that's why it's important that you have that good communication with your teachers, so the teachers can guide, because sometimes parents' expectations are really high. You know, they expect so much from a 3-year-old when a 3-year-old really is not at that stage.
Not at that stage. Really.
And if you miss those pre-reading readiness skills or those foundational skills, it can have that negative impact on a child for life.
Yeah. For example?
So we begin with songs.
Yeah.
Phonemic awareness.
Okay.
Words are made up of songs. We put songs together to make words. We teach them initial songs, letter songs, initial songs. Beginnings are the initial songs, the end songs, rhyming words. We teach them to blend songs together to call words, to segment songs. So that's where we start with phonemic awareness, and from that we will gradually bring in the print, where they will be able to associate the sound with the print.
Okay.
Then we start teaching words, sight words, and of course the teacher would be modeling reading, teaching about book knowledge, how we turn the book, the pages in the book, we'll read from left to right. All those things would be taught at preschool. As foundational skills. And these are things that parents can also model at home.
Okay, that leads to my next question, because I'm realizing our focus more here is on the teacher teaching the job, but it also starts home plays an important role in this also, because what a youngster learns at home is what he will also preempt at the school. So it's important that the parents, of course, take the time out once they have the time, because most of the time how the world runs these days, parents have the limited time to offer those kind of teaching to their children.
And that's what the parents need to do.
Yeah,
make more time.
And this falls directly into our child-born theme.
Yes.
I am your child, I am your priority. So we're supposed to prioritize our children. And one of the ways we can do that is spending time with them. Something that is fastly going out of our homes is what we refer to as lap time. A long time there wasn't so much technology to distract us, so we had the children on our laps, either telling them stories or reading stories to them. Now this is something we really need to bring back. We tend to overlook and underestimate the power of lap time. The time we spend with our children. So you have the book and you open the book and you're showing the child that, hey, we're reading, and even though the child may not understand, based on the age you're reading to the child, you're making the connections, you're following with your fingers. The child is getting there that we read from a particular direction, and they get to see that the pages are turned, they make the association and see that, okay, mommy or daddy reading to me, what is written there is actually words, so they're able to connect certain things. And sometimes we underestimate the value of such an activity.
You know, someone may be listening to us this morning and viewing us and may saying, well, how are we able to go back there? If you understand where I'm coming from, they'll say that the pace of the world today with technology, maybe I could leave it up to technology to take care of that in terms of teaching my son or daughter to read. Do you recommend that at all in terms of, as you mentioned, the lab time, but where technology is available? Some parents may decide that I would prefer to give my son or daughter the opportunity to look at television to learn to read.
I mean, technology has its place, and I guess back then, I mean, I'm the mother of 2 children, and sometimes my busy schedule didn't always allow me to have the lap time or so, and I remember using the Ladybird series, and they had the radio cassettes, so sometimes I'd put my son sit in the living room, and I'd give him the book, and he'd be listening. So sometimes you might use technology, but the best way you can prioritize your child is spending time. So even in your busy schedule, as a parent, you should make time for your child or children, because you'd realize that sooner or later these children grow up so fast. You know, they grow out of your lap so quickly, and you wonder where did the time go, you know?
Become lost for you as a parent now.
So we cannot underestimate the value of spending time with our children doing those activities, you know?
Right.
So even though technology is there, and of course technology will help. We have audiobooks now. So maybe sometimes you're too tired to read, but you and your child could listen to the story, you know?
All right.
So technology has its place, but the thing is spending this quality time with your children.
It's important.
It's very important.
You want to add anything to that? Michelle?
Yes. We technology is here to stay, and we must embrace technology, but we must not let technology replace us.
Okay.
So spending a time with the child, we must make that a priority. And as Ms. Williams pointed out, yes, we understand that you would not have the time all the time, and we can use technology. Yes, we can incorporate technology, but at least sometimes we have to make the effort, because there are certain things that only we can teach.
All right.
The technology would not be able to teach the child in that way.
All right. My final question, and I hope both of you could answer, the importance of reading at an early stage, the importance of parents teaching their sons and daughters to read at an early stage, the importance of that. And it could be my final question before we take a wrap.
Okay. So reading to children at an early age is very, very important. Research has shown that children whose parents read to them very early would have gained most successes in school and in life.
Okay.
Yeah. So we see that happening all the time. We can tell from the students' performance, those students who have that rich literacy environment at home. Maybe the parents don't always read to them, but they have access to books, to print, to literature at home. So there are different things that can be done. Reading to the child is just one thing that can be done. So I'll ask Ms. Williams to continue.
Mr. Kado, you would agree that when you become a parent, your life changes in a lot of ways.
So true.
Right? Reading to children is critical. It helps them to develop critical thinking skills. It helps them to understand that language is not just monotone. Imagine you're singing to your child. That child is understanding that, okay, language has a rise and a fall, you know. If you're reading a story like The Three Bears, you take on the role of one of the characters. So it's critical in helping the children, not just with reading, but also with their speech. You know, they become problem solvers by reading to them, because we're exposing them to a lot of things. And as a parent, like I say, your life changes. So at home, you might want to label certain things like chairs, table. You write a word, and the child might come and ask, "Mommy or Daddy, what is that word? What does that word say?" You know, you're really helping your child to learn words at home. So they may not know television, but you might write television and TV. So you could tell them, okay, TV is the short way we say television. So the child is learning at home. So as parents, we should create an environment that becomes so stimulating that the urge to read cannot be denied by a child.
Interesting to know that. Yeah. Anything in closing before we take a wrap for today?
I just wanted to add to that point in terms of the importance of early literacy. Now, the students who are exposed to all those all those experiences, so not just print and print-rich environment, but the conversations that are kept, the places that you visit and you interact. So you may take the child to the supermarket, but you have that conversation in the supermarket. So you're exposing your children to everyday life activities, so that when they're in the classroom, they can make the connections. When you're reading, and you're reading about a market, or you're reading about a visit and supermarket comes up, the child already has that experience. So making that connection and getting meaning from the text would become much easier. Okay. So parents have that responsibility to not just make their home that environment that cultivates readers and early learners, but also they have that opportunity to take out their children. Don't leave them at home. You're going out, take them along with you and keep that conversation as you ride the bus, as you visit places, so that you can enrich their knowledge and their vocabulary.
All right. It's like the verbal and the visual at the same time.
Exactly.
A trip to the supermarket, you read the labels on certain things.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're passing on the road, you wonder, how does that child know that word says stop? But every time you get to the traffic light, you realize the vehicle is stopping, the child is making association.
Yes.
So we say a reader today is a thinker tomorrow.
Interesting.
So, because earlier I said it helps them to develop critical thinking skills.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, once again, Ms. Charles and of course Ms. Wilson, I want to thank you both for coming and sharing information this morning. I'm sure there are listeners and viewers there. We see some calls coming, but we're not really taking calls on the program. I'm sure there's someone who's probably interested to ask a question or two. But it's important that I hope there are parents who are listening and make the effort to play that role in their children's life in terms of, being there and put a lot of emphasis into teaching them to read. This is important. I want to thank you both once again.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, folks, that's how we take a wrap for this edition of the Mid-Morning Buzz here on Classic Radio GBN TV. Join us again for another edition. That's why we say goodbye, folks.